I'm cooking food from every single country in the world in alphabetical order. Today, I am still in B. Making a dish from Botswana. Over we go to Southern Africa, landlocked right there, Botswana. Their cuisine, there's a lot of meat, there's a lot of corn, maize. I'm gonna make their national dish today. It is the special occasion dish. You're going to a wedding, you're gonna have Seswaa. It's like this meat stew that's been boiled and then pounded to smithereens. And there's a lot of meat in it and not a whole lot else, not a whole lot of ingredients. It's a kind of a faux pas to add too much to it. And joining that on the plate is gonna be pap, which is this like starchy porridge type thing. I've been meaning to make this one for a while because you're gonna find it all over Southern Africa. When I was making Angolan food, I wish I had served it with my stew there, the muamba de galinha. Look at that thing. It needs some pap. Also, I'm gonna make boiled Morogo. Although Morogo is a Southern African leafy green spinach that I can't find here, so I'm just gonna use regular old spinach. But it's gonna be boiled, and it's gonna be close enough for today's purposes. I gotta stop talking. We got a lot to do, and this Seswaa is not gonna cook itself. It's gonna take a little bit of time. So where's the beef? There's the beef. So this is 2 pounds of bone-in chuck shoulder. And yeah, it has to have the bone. And I was kind of struggling with finding some chuck that still had the bone intact, so I had to resort to a delivery service. And what they delivered is this, these like thin slices of it, which isn't exactly what I had in mind. I was expecting like a big piece of it, and then I would cut it up into chunks. I don't think it matters how thick it is, because at the end of the day, all I'm gonna be doing is pounding it into oblivion. So I'm gonna proceed with this. I think it's gonna be great. This is my bone knife, by the way. Cut this up. Yeah, get that anger out. In the pot, add the meat. I've had these leftover beef bones in the freezer for quite a while. Some bone marrow in here. I'm gonna throw them into the pot too. It's just gonna add a little more flavor to it. There's around a teaspoon or so of salt, a few bay leaves, like 3. Says a little optional chili powder, but of course I'm gonna exercise that option. Just a little bit, there. And then I need water to cover it. Quick like a bunny, I'm gonna take these 2 beef bones that I was gonna add in here, and I'm just gonna brown them really quickly in the oven. The oven's already turned on, so it's gonna be great. Now, of course, in Botswana, this is cooked over open flame, and it's like this 3-legged iron pot. You just have that running for a while, you know, a couple hours to like the whole day or something. But for me, on the stove top. Bring it to a boil. Beef bones have been browned. Get the lid on and into the preheated oven, 320 degrees Fahrenheit, middle rack for 4 hours. Okay, so I'm moving on to the Morogo recipe. So I was initially just gonna use spinach and salt, but while I've been waiting for this beef, my eyes started to wander at other Morogo recipes. I'm cheating on my older Morogo recipe with a new one, and that is gonna include onions and tomatoes. It seems to be more common in Botswana to include these things. I always have onions on hand, so I just found one in the kitchen, sliced her up. But the tomatoes, I had to use grape tomatoes. I don't know how authentic that is, but that's all I had around me, so I just kind of diced them up. So hopefully you'll never notice, except for me telling you right now. So the new recipe I'm following along to is eyeballing all the ingredients, so I shall do the same. I'm just gonna grab this onion, throw it in the pan. Okay, once those onions start to turn a little color, I'm gonna add in some tomato. A little bit of salt. The other side of a spoon, just gonna dip it into my chili powder. This is the measurements I'm using today. In my pot of boiling water, add in a whole bunch of spinach. More is always less, right? Add in the wilted spinach. A little salt, cook away that water. The Seswaa should be ready. It's been 4 hours. Whoa, it's looking good. I just need to get the meat out of there, save the broth. Ow, why'd you do that? don't do that. Okay, bones in one bowl, meat in this bowl, leave the broth in here. Got a whole operation going right now. But what I'm gonna do is reduce this broth down over there. Okay, and now for the interesting part. In Botswana, they got that, you know, the three-legged steel pot and a big stick, and they're just mashing it that way. I got a wooden spoon. But don't I have so I got the mortar and pestle, the pounder. I'm just gonna pound it that way. That's way better. That's the stuff. Okay, by golly, you did it. So there, I'm happy with that. I've reduced the broth. I'm gonna add it through a sieve into this thingamajig. There's a hell of a lot of fat in there, so I'm just gonna stick this into the freezer. Done. Want that fat to rise to the surface. Well, I actually want it to like crust up on the top. Anyway, now next up, I need to make the pap. And the most important contribution to this recipe is white cornmeal. It has to be cornmeal, and it has to be white, not the yellow stuff. So in a saucepan, I'm gonna add in 2 cups of water, a teaspoon of salt, let there be light. The water's boiling, I'm gonna add in a cup of the cornmeal, cover, and then turn to a medium-low heat. Let me just give it a whisk firstly. Why does this clump up? The water's boiling, I'm gonna add in a cup of the cornmeal. Keep whisking, keep whisking. You know what? Don't know this right now, but this is my 3rd attempt at making pap. It's surprisingly difficult because it just keeps clumping up, and I don't want it to clump up, I want it to look nice and smooth. Okay, I'm gonna add 2 cups of water, teaspoon of salt, get that up to a boil. Now this is the part I keep screwing up because it keeps clumping when I add it to the boiling water. It's around a cup of the cornmeal. I'm gonna add it into my bowl. That's confusing because I cannot find like a direct answer on how to do this, but I'm just gonna add water and I'm gonna eyeball it. Just gonna mix it together with the cornmeal so that there's no more clumps. I hate the clumps. That water is boiling. Add in the cornmeal. Woohoo! Mix it fast and hard because once it's, okay, wow, that's not clumping this time. Adding the water in with the cornmeal before I add it into the boiling hot water is the game saver. I'm gonna turn down the heat and put a lid on it. Cook that for a few minutes. I'm gonna keep an eye on it because the whole point is that once it's cooked, it separates itself from the sides of the pan and the bottom. Just keep watching it. And then it says you can add a spoonful of butter once the heat is off, which the heat is off. And I forgot about the broth. So the fat has risen to the top of my broth as per expected. Before I serve the sauce, I'd like to heat it up just a little bit as it's been in the freezer. I'm gonna start with the pap, the Seswaa, the spinach, the Morogo, and the cooking broth on top. That should do it. Order up. I'm trying to do a little research at the same time as I'm cooking this because I have a feeling I'm supposed to be eating this with my hands. If not all of it, at least the pap. And I want to be as respectful as I can with it, and this is just like a new thing for me too, so I'm just gonna follow my instincts. I'm gonna eat the pap with my hand. Should I eat all of it with my hand? I don't know. I'm gonna eat the pap with my hand, everything else I'll use a... What should I do? Should I eat it with my hand? And I think it's with my right hand and my 2 fingers here and my thumb, right? If this is not how I'm supposed to be eating it, I'm very sorry. This is fantastic. There's also reading that you're not supposed to lick your fingers until after the meal's finished. In case I'm 100% wrong on that, I'm going to also use my fork, just as a contingency plan. The Seswaa was fantastic. It's so well seasoned, considering it was just, it was just like a teaspoon of salt or something, but sitting in that pot for so many hours really paid off. Super tender, just completely fell apart in your mouth. Or you mix it in with the pap, that carby pap. Oh yeah, spinach too. The spinach was great. I really like the spinach. Honestly, just grabbing all of that and having it in one bite is a beautiful thing. Sometimes I find it really amazing how much flavor can be in something that is seemingly so simple, yet more convoluted things sometimes don't get as much flavor. This is not related to another show I have on the channel. Food was delicious. I would eat it again with my hands or with my fork. But that's it. I'll see y'all in another country that starts with the letter B. I'll give you a hint. So one last thing. I've been struggling with the recipes that I've been using for this show as of late. It's just some of them are very confusing, and the goal for me is always to find the most authentic recipe possible. And it's not just Googling and finding the first couple that show up, because they're usually by people just like me who are trying to recreate these recipes. It's not authentic. So if you're from one of these upcoming countries, you want to share along a family recipe, an authentic recipe, just comment down below, get my attention, share the recipe, or just wave your hands. I will see it.